You apologize when you walk past someone at a narrow hallway. You apologize when someone bumps into you. You apologize when your needs arrive in your throat like a stutter. You apologize before you even know what you've done wrong. And if you listen closely, you can hear the apology forming in your body before it forms in language. A tightening in the chest, a subtle flinch in the shoulders, a preemptive softening of your voice. Like you're trying to shrink the space you take up in the room. You learned somewhere along the way that peace is something you earn by becoming smaller, that safety is something you negotiate for by being agreeable, that belonging is a fragile contract that can be broken if you inconvenience someone, disappoint them, or take too long to exist. So you apologize. You apologize to keep the air calm. You apologize to keep the temperature low. You apologize to keep the people around you comfortable, even when you are not. And here is the paradox, the cruel paradox at the heart of this pattern. The thing that once kept you safe is now quietly sabotaging your ability to feel safe in your own skin. Over-apologizing may have once protected your attachment. It may have kept you connected to unpredictable people, emotionally unavailable caregivers, volatile environments, or relationships where your safety depended on being easy to deal with. But now, as an adult, that same reflex dissolves your boundaries before you even know you had them. It teaches your nervous system that your presence is an inconvenience. It trains your self-trust to hesitate. It erodes your sense of agency with every soft, automatic "I'm sorry" you didn't need to say. This is the invisible cost of conditional safety. You didn't become this way because you were weak. You became this way because you were paying attention. You learned how to read micro-expressions, tonal shifts, emotional weather patterns. You learned how to sense tension in a room the way sailors sense a coming storm. You learned to apologize not just for what you did, but for what you might do. And now you live in a quiet internal contradiction. You want to be honest, but you're afraid honesty will cost you connection. You want to take up space, but you learned that space is something you must earn. So you keep apologizing, not because you're wrong, but because somewhere inside you, safety still feels conditional. Over-apologizing is not a personality trait. It is a nervous system strategy. Psychologically, this pattern often emerges from anxious attachment, a relational style studied extensively in attachment theory by John Bowlby. Anxious attachment forms when connection in early life feels inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes withdrawn, sometimes conditional. The child learns that proximity to others must be maintained through vigilance, appeasement, and emotional performance. The apology becomes a bridge, a way to say, please don't leave, please don't withdraw, please don't turn cold. Over time, this becomes hypervigilance, a state where your nervous system is always scanning for signs of disapproval. Hypervigilance is not just psychological, it's neurological. The amygdala, your brain's threat detector, becomes overactive. It fires alarms in social situations that aren't actually dangerous, but feel dangerous because they echo earlier emotional uncertainty. Your body becomes a weather station for other people's moods. Then there's fawning, a trauma response identified in complex trauma research. While fight, flight, and freeze are more commonly known, fawning is the strategy of appeasing the perceived threat by becoming agreeable, helpful, apologetic, non-confrontational. The fawn response teaches the nervous system, if I make myself pleasant enough, I will be spared. And over time, this survival strategy becomes your default mode of being. Neurologically, repeated appeasement patterns strengthen certain pathways in the brain. The more you apologize reflexively, the more your brain associates conflict or potential displeasure with danger. Your prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for conscious choice and boundary setting, gets overridden by faster, older survival circuitry. You apologize before you've even assessed whether an apology is warranted. It's like having a smoke alarm that goes off when someone lights a candle. Philosophically, this pattern aligns with what Michel Foucault described as the internalization of control. You no longer need external punishment to regulate yourself. You regulate yourself from the inside. You police your own tone, you censor your own needs, you discipline your own boundaries before anyone else has to. Your apology becomes an internal surveillance system. And here is the tragedy. This system is exquisitely intelligent. It kept you safe once, but it is outdated software running in a present that no longer requires that level of self-erasure. The apology is not humility. It is a relic of conditional safety. The emotional cost of over-apologizing is not loud. It is quiet. It is cumulative. It is a slow erosion of self-respect disguised as kindness. Every unnecessary apology teaches you that your presence is a problem to be solved. Every preemptive sorry teaches your body that existing is something to feel guilty about. Every swallowed boundary becomes another stone added to the weight you carry silently. This is the grief no one sees, the grief of sacrificing authenticity for belonging, the grief of choosing safety over truth so many times that you forget what truth feels like in your mouth. You begin to confuse self-erasure with virtue. You call it politeness. You call it being easygoing. You call it emotional intelligence. But underneath lives a fear. The fear that if you stop smoothing the edges of yourself, you will be abandoned. You don't just apologize to others, you apologize to yourself.
You apologize for needing rest. You apologize for wanting more. You apologize for feeling hurt when you were in fact hurt. This creates an invisible split inside you. One part of you longs to be seen fully. Another part of you monitors and edits that longing in real time, afraid of what it might cost. So even joy becomes complicated. You feel joy, then apologize for taking too long to feel it. You take up space, then shrink back to make sure no one resents you for it. The core fear driving this pattern is not that you are wrong, it is that your needs will cost you love, and so you barter with your own authenticity. You trade pieces of your truth for the illusion of harmony. This is not peace. This is self-abandonment wearing the mask of kindness. This pattern doesn't stay in childhood. It grows up with you. It learns adult language. It wears adult clothes. You might notice it in how you move through the world. In relationships, you overfunction emotionally. You take responsibility for other people's feelings. You apologize for their discomfort. You become the emotional buffer that absorbs tension so others don't have to feel it. At work, you minimize your contributions. You apologize before sharing ideas. You downplay your expertise. You say, this might be stupid, but as a way to preempt rejection. In conflict, you collapse your boundaries. You rush to apologize even when harm was mutual or not yours at all. You mistake self-respect for selfishness. Internally, you live with chronic guilt, a low-grade sense that you are taking up too much space simply by existing. You struggle to receive care without discomfort. Kindness feels like a debt. Support feels like something you'll have to repay with emotional labor later. You confuse peace with silence. You equate harmony with the absence of expressed needs. These are not personality traits. They are coping strategies. And healing begins with witnessing, not judging the pattern, not shaming the pattern, but seeing it clearly, compassionately as an adaptation that once made sense. This is where unlearning begins, not by force, but by awareness. You start to notice the moment the apology rises in your throat. You pause. You ask, is this an expression of accountability or an expression of fear? Witnessing interrupts the reflex. It creates a small space between the trigger and the response, and in that space, you begin to reclaim choice. Healing from over-apologizing is not about becoming harder, it's about becoming more honest. It is the practice of reparenting the part of you that learned safety was conditional. It is offering that part what it never had, unconditional permission to exist, to take up space, to be inconvenient sometimes, to be imperfect without being unlovable. It is shadow work. Meeting the parts of you that were exiled for the sake of belonging and inviting them back into the center of your life. It is choosing softness toward yourself without softness becoming self-erasure. The work is slow. It is relational. It is embodied. You learn to replace automatic apologies with grounded presence. You learn to tolerate the discomfort of not smoothing every emotional wrinkle in the room. You learn that someone else's disappointment is not a threat to your survival. Viktor Frankl wrote that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space is our freedom. Your healing lives in that space, in the breath before the apology, in the moment you choose presence over appeasement. You are not broken, you are patterned, and patterns can be rewritten with patience, compassion, and courage. The goal is not to become someone who never apologizes. The goal is to become someone who only apologizes when it is true. Because you were never meant to earn your right to exist. You were meant to inhabit it. If this spoke to something quiet and old inside you, share it with someone who also learned to apologize for breathing. And if you want more deep dives into the hidden architectures of the psyche, subscribe. You don't need to be fixed. You are becoming whole.